Shabbat Shalom. It's Rabbi David Barron with my weekly Torah talk here at Temple of the Arts. We're really excited. We're going to have our first live Shabbat service outdoors in the backyard of one of our members' beautiful home and garden, and we want you to come. So if you're here in LA, member of the synagogue, even if you're not, call our office, 323-658-9100, and RSVP for Shabbat dinner, June 18th. We'll fill you in with all the details. And then starting in July, we'll resume live services in our theater, our beautiful Saban Theater, which I'm sitting in right now. And we'll also have services in August for Selichot, the month before the High Holy Days. And then September, early this year, on Labor Day weekend, Rosh Hashanah, and then Yom Kippur on the 15th. So please make sure you renew your membership and join us for the live High Holy Day services, which will also be live streamed. And for that matter, our Shabbat service on the 18th of June will also be live streamed from the garden, from the beautiful home that we'll be holding it in. This week, the Torah portion is about a rebellion. It's the portion of Korah. Korah led the rebellion against Moses in the wilderness. Now, if you were following the stories of the 12 spies last week who toured the land, 10 of them said, "It's hopeless, we'll never conquer this land, we'll never enter it." And only 2, Caleb and Joshua, said, "With God's help, we'll prevail." That sent a really important message. First of all, it struck fear in the heart of the people. And the message was, this was a group of people who were constantly murmuring and backsliding against the authority of Moses. "Oh, why did we come here in the wilderness to die of starvation and thirst? Let's go back to Egypt. At least we were living the life of a slave. We were well fed by our master. We were well taken care of." And that constant murmuring and backsliding eventually erupted in the full-scale rebellion against the authority of Moses and Aaron that we see in the Torah portion this week, the portion of Korah, telling of the rebellion of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Now, the rabbis in their commentary on this rebellion say, it was a rebellion that stemmed from ego. Why is Moses the leader? Why shouldn't I be the leader? Why is Aaron the high priest, his brother? That's nepotism. Why shouldn't I be the high priest? There was a lot of personal animosity, jealousy, driving the entire rebellion. So the rabbis say it was not l'shem shamayim, out of a pure heavenly place. It was out of ego-driven desire to lead and to be on top. And when things happen from a place of ego and jealousy, they can never come to a good end. And that's one of the important lessons the rabbis saw in this rebellion. But I saw a few others, and when I wrote my book, Moses on Management, Leadership Lessons in Leading People in Business and in Life, I tried to look at the story from a wider perspective. Moses ultimately had to lead the people, and he was undoubtedly attuned to the constant undercurrent of rebellion, of murmuring, of anger at his leadership, and anger at their situation being in the wilderness. And he undoubtedly recognized that they were possessed of what we call a slave mentality. They were stuck in Egypt. They were stuck in their past, who they were, slaves. They could never see themselves triumphing or prevailing. They always had that slave mentality. And that was something that drove fear, anxiety, and ultimately murmuring and backsliding and rebellion. Think about that in our own personal lives. If we're stuck in a certain place, if we're possessed of a certain mentality and outlook, it's really hard to break through. I've known people who the doctor has said, "Listen, Joe, quit smoking. You're going to get lung disease." And the person was not capable of breaking out of that bad habit, even though their own physician told them their life may be at risk. Sometimes we get so stuck in habitual patterns of behavior that we're incapable of breaking out of them. And that was true of the Israelites, and so their punishment, as you know the biblical story, they had to wander for 40 more years. And for some of us, we have to continue to learn the lesson and relearn it in this and in other incarnations. So here's an opportunity to look at something and see it from a different perspective. How can I break out of a pattern that limits me? The slave mentality, if you will. And many of us are enslaved to habits, to desires, to passions, to obsessions that don't really serve us. And until we're able to recognize that, we'll never be able to break out of it. The great message of this story of the slaves exiting Egypt is that they were now free. They were capable of achieving anything, but they couldn't see themselves that way. And if in our minds we limit the way we look at ourselves, or we only see ourselves from one perspective, we can never break through and succeed. So I hope you'll take this message to heart, that don't be possessed of a slave mentality, don't be enslaved to anything. Recognize that your true and best self is when you serve others and you serve the Creator. I hope you take the message to heart this Shabbat and throughout the year. Shabbat Shalom.